A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and my special guest is the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Richard Boyce. Mr. Boyce, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
It's my pleasure, Lisa.
Now, let's start straight off. Barbadians are concerned about what appears to be a spike in crime. Let's look at the crime statistics for the first 6 months of 2022.
Thank you, Lisa. Looking at the crime statistics for the last 6 months of the year, first, I will look at the crime of murder. In 2021, we had 11 murders, and in 2022, there were 13 murders. Robbery, we had 42 robberies in 2021 and 46 in 2022. Rape, there were 30 rapes in 2021 and 26 in 2022. Aggravated burglary, 33 in 2021 and 30 in 2022. Theft from the person, 25. This year, we have 20. Commercial burglaries, 86. This year, we have 67. All other burglaries, which pertains to dwelling houses and churches, 227. And this year, 262. Now, the total major crimes so far for the year is 464, and last year we had 456. There's a difference of 9 cases, and it give us an increase of 2%. All other crimes, we have cases such as drug offenses, assault, occasioning actual body harms. We have people fighting, which people call disturbances. Those types of crimes that we have, all other crimes. Overall, in terms of all other crimes, for 2021, we had 2,230, and 2022, 2,395, a difference of 165 cases, an increase of 7%. Overall crime so far for the first 6 months, in 2021, 2,685, and 2022, 2,859. This gives us an overall increase of 6% where crime is concerned. So having looked at the figures for crime, we find that a negligible 6% increase. I must say that because of the aspect of the intervention of firearms, that in itself would have caused much disquiet to members of the public. And because of that, we found that persons are inclined to see crime as running away. But in truth and in fact, looking at the raw statistics, it shows us, well, things are not that far off from last year. But I understand the concerns of the citizens, and that is why we continue to go over what I just want through with my members and make sure that we go back to those areas where these crimes are occurring, talk to persons, reassure persons, where there's that level of fear or where harm is anticipated. We do that reassurance policing to let persons know that things are not as bad as you think it is.
Well, Commissioner, is it fair to call a 6% increase negligible?
It is in the scheme of things. The reason why I say that, sometimes if you have a 20% increase or higher, that is something to be alarmed about. But we notice that the big increase in crime is in the minor offenses. Mm-hmm. The minor offenses is what you see that cause that big jump in the 6%. The major crimes, the 2% increase, that is the one that we're most concerned about. That is where persons are shot, where persons are seriously injured and things like that. So the major crimes are trending downwards. It's not below last year, but it's trending downwards when we have certain outbreaks in crimes. And in the aspect too of all other burglaries, we find that there was an increase in that aspect of crime. What I would say is that we found that happening in certain areas like Wanstead, Pleasant View, an area where persons were concerned tremendously about it. And what we did, we carried out the analysis, we scanned the whole environment, we did the analysis, and we did the engagement. And what came up of that intervention is that we discovered that 2 persons, now nationals I might say, were responsible for operating in that area. I will not mention the country, but for sure it was not the Haitians. What I would say is that persons come given 6 months to stay in the country, then run out of money. And what they were doing, they were just going in those areas and committing crime to continue living in the country, to survive. And we were, because of our intervention and our engagement and involvement, our work, our investigations, we were able to identify those two persons arrested. And from the time that occurred, that crime in those areas which I identified reduced tremendously. So yes, you will see spikes, but it is the intervention of the police, both day and night, that brought some level of calm and reduced those offenses from occurring in that area. So yes, I can understand the person's concern where crime is concerned, but I must re-emphasize that the police have seen it, and our officers were out there, and they did tremendously well in combating the perception or the real aspect. Those things, those or certain aspect of it was the perception that the crime was increasing. But in reality, we were able to pull it back, whatever the perception was, whatever, and persons now can rest assured that the culprits are out of the picture. And now I can sense it, people are more relaxed now having that intervention from us.
No, I want to focus particularly on murders. We're up 2 over last year. 11 last year, 13 this year for the period, the first 6 months. And in most instances, again, guns are being used.
Yes, that is true. 61% of those crimes were committed by the use of a firearm. And that is also a concern for us. And we are doing things. That is, we are putting strategies in place. We are putting our heads together to get those guns out of the hands of persons. I must say that so far for the year, we were able to take 43 guns out of the hands of persons just 6 months of the year. And that is good work. When you compare last year, this time, we were only able to get 27 guns out of a person's hands. So yes, the concern for murders and the involvement of guns is well known to us, and we put those things in place. Now, in terms of the actual firearms, yes, it is an interest to us, and we wondering how much more we can do, because if you look at even a 10-year span, every year you take actually 90 guns out of the hands of persons, but still we find that it's still replenishment where these are concerned, and there are certain reasons for that we would probably go into later.
No, just to be clear, we saw an increase in the use of guns, not only the last 2 years, but this has been happening, as you said, for some time. Can we look, do you have statistics for the last 5 years, for instance? Because I believe 2019, if memory serves me correct, there was a particular increase in murders with the use of guns.
Yes, 2019 was for us what I would call an outlier. That is, we had 48 murders that year. And it surprised us. And when we did our analysis, we found that there was what persons term killer for hire. That is, a person term hits. That is, persons will have disputes. And instead of the person themselves taking revenge, what they will do, they would employ persons to take revenge on their behalf for money. And the person who carry out those hits, not just to a cuff or a little fall or whatever, some form of tell you, well, let the person know they'll behave or not. What the person went to the very limit in taking that person's life. And it happened in more than roughly 6 occasions, I recall, that those types of incidents happened. So those were type of offenses that really pushed 2019 figures way out of the regular, normal level of crime that we were normally seeing.
How concerned are you about the use of illegal firearms?
I am extremely, deeply concerned about the use of firearms in terms of crimes, not only murder, but even discharging a firearm is a big concern to the police. And why is it a concern? I must say that persons like peace, quiet, they like to go about their work, their leisure times with a good frame of mind, not having to worry about being shot or being injured. So that for our work is to provide that safe environment for members of the public. So anytime that the quietness of society is disturbed, it is a concern for the police. And because of that, we have to put things in place. That is, we have to put strategies. We have to look at what is happening and do the necessary, whether it's community engagement, whether it is putting staff members from various sections, whether it's the TRU, that is the Tactical Response Unit, or regular patrols. We put them in those areas to beef up the visibility of the police officers to bring back some level of calm and reassurance to members of the public. Because once we reassure members of the public, we would get the support of the public, we would get the buy-in of the public, and then things will settle back down to normal.
No, we already know that firearms are being used more and more. Are you seeing more high-powered firearms?
The weapon of choice for criminals is the 9mm weapon, handgun, a pistol. So even though that is the weapon of choice, recently we have been seeing coming into the mix will be high-powered weapons, the AK-47 and other rifles. And that is of concern to us. And why is it a concern? Because it is a concern because when persons are armed with such weapons, they have a big advantage on whoever the target is. So the target could be an ordinary law-abiding citizen going about their duties, and they become collateral damage in the sense they were not the intended target. And because they happen to be in that place at that time, persons can miss their target and injure someone who is an innocent bystander. And we don't want that to happen. Also, we as a law-abiding country, and also a police service which is tasked to look after the health of the community, the well-being of the community, we have to intervene, go into districts and deal with issues and matters. So going into districts, then we wouldn't know what we coming up against. And to come up against such high-power weapon would be of grave concern to us if someone is armed with such a weapon and come after us. So we need to have a real close watch at those weapons and do everything within our power to make sure we get them out of the hands of the criminals.
And you know the usual question, Commissioner, how are they getting into the hands of these persons?
Well, from our investigations, we found that there are avenues which they're used to bring these weapons into the country. Our ports of entry is one area where persons are exploiting. Another area they're using boats, that is boats coming from, that is within the Caribbean or outside of the region. We find that persons are very, very, very smart in packing and packaging their weapons, and they are slipping through various points of entry. Even packing barrels, whether it's on a plane or vessels, they're very secretive and having these things shipped to Barbados or ferry to Barbados. We know that we do not manufacture guns, and that is a big concern for us because here we are not manufacturing guns and we having them come to Barbados. Now, in dealing with these guns, we find that we are fighting the battle downstream in a sense that the weapons are manufactured, produced upstream, that is in another country. So we have no control whatsoever what is obtained or what occurs in the other country. So when they reach our shores, then we are fighting a very tough battle in the sense that the more that we take off the road, we find that there's always a replenishment of weapons in the hands of the criminals. So what is being done? We are carrying out our investigations. We are dealing with our intelligence persons. We are engaging our stakeholders in the terms of different countries, whereby the persons are coming on board with us. We are putting our heads together and we are having tremendous success where these are concerned. But it is an ever fighting battle that needs to be won, and there's no way that we would push back or pull back from that duty in terms of getting the weapons out of the hands of the criminals.
Now, you said that they're slipping through. The police service has a Marine unit. How armed are your forces out there to deal with anything they might encounter?
Well, our forces are armed, but it's not the police alone who work on the waters. There's close collaboration with members of the Barbados Defense Force
The Coast Guard.
and the Coast Guard also, and other players within the region, and also international partners who are also working with us to prevent this thing from getting out of hand. That is the things of gun trafficking, firearms trafficking, and things like that. So persons are working tremendously well with us. We meet on a regular basis and we put our heads together to find out the best way we can work at it to get these weapons out of the hands of the criminals.
So what are you doing? What is the service doing to get these off the streets in the meantime?
In the meantime, we are doing our engagement in different communities. We are doing our raids and sweeps. We are doing our searches. We are doing various other engagements, which I will not go into currently now, but we are doing those things that can bring tremendous success for us, and we are seeing the success almost on a daily basis.
Now, given the increase in crimes like burglary and robberies and the fear that some persons have given the spike in the crime situation, are you seeing an increase in applications for firearms licenses from business owners and property owners?
There's a slight increase where that is concerned. And the reason why I'm saying that, when you ask persons the reasons for wanting a firearm, they bring that as a reason. They say, well, we are noticing an increase of shootings, firearms being discharged in the country, and I do not feel safe. And I need to protect myself, my property, and my family. But we have to look and see if that is the best way to go about it. That is, whether or not that justifies a person to own or to grant a license to own a firearm. The reasons are not over and above the ordinary citizens, because everyone is at risk once the firearms are there. So the reasons might not be fully justifiable to grant a firearm. Yes, they bring that as a reason for wanting a firearm, but for us, it is not a total, airtight, and a good enough reason in every case to own a firearm. Now, sometimes we will grant a license based on the circumstances if the person can present a strong case with all the facts, then we would probably decide to grant the firearm. But we cannot say, well, if we grant 1 or 2 or 3, then number 20, 30 will come and give the same reason, and then there will be a number of firearms out there that cannot be justifiable.
So what's a strong case? What's a strong case?
The person must justify the reason that they have justify with a good reason why they should own or possess a firearm. And from our knowledge, we know exactly what is happening within the country. We know, yes, there may be shootings in particular district or wherever, but we know that it is not to the level where every John Brown or Tom, Dick, and Harry will come forward and say, well, I am in fear. I scare for my life. I would need a firearm to protect myself. If you do that, then we will be an armed society and there will be more problems than we can actually manage. So that is how we have to look at it.
One of the trends we're seeing as well is much younger people going before the court charged with crimes like murder. How big of a concern is that for you?
For us, it is a major concern. And the reason why I'm saying that, because when persons at such a young age, and the ages which I'm talking about is age between 11 and 16 in the first instance, and then 17 to 25. And that is the age group I will look at in terms of young persons. And looking at the persons who are between 11 and 16, we find that the majority of offenses which they are involved in are crimes of assaults, serious bodily harm, that is injuring some person, whether breaking a hand or whatever, and theft, stealing. Those are the major offenses that persons within both groups, that is the juveniles between 11 and 16, and also 17 to 25. The 17 to 25, well, they graduate now to commit more serious crimes, murder, robberies, all the major offenses which I listed. That age group is fully represented in that bracket. So what we see as a big concern is that we have to utilize our resources, the juvenile liaison scheme, especially the persons who are in the 11 to 16 age group. That is the group that we focus on. We get tremendous success where that is concerned. Early intervention. We try to steer them away, because if we don't do that early intervention, then we know that 3 to 4 years down the road, it is tremendous problems for us. So that is something that we work with other agencies, whether it's the Child Care Board, whether it's the government industrial schools, because some persons end up going to those areas. That is those institutions, I should say. Now the 7 to 25, that is, if we look at the figures, we look at type of person, type of crimes, and persons who are involved, and we find that age group 17 to 25, that is the problem. That is the group which is giving us most of the problem. So whether it is murder, whether it's aggravated burglaries, whether it's robberies, and these are persons who we've noticed are being armed more often than anybody else in the other age group. So there seems to be for us that battle to get the guns out of these persons' hands. And that is a major concern for us. We are losing the young persons into a life of crime. We have to find ways to getting them out of the criminal justice system. And we working with all the stakeholders, probation department, Child Care Board, as we mentioned, and other agencies to get them back on track so that it can make life easy, not only for the police, but their family members, because most of the time, parents and other close relatives bear the brunt of the shame and disgrace when the young persons are out and about committing crime in those areas.
And through your investigations, what is the main motivation for these youngsters being involved in crime?
To me, the motivation is to have that feeling of being bigger.
So peer pressure.
Peer pressure. Being seen as some person who can control things. Being manly. Having that feeling of, I can do anything I want to do. I am my own man or own woman. And those are things that persons are doing. Getting themselves involved in crime and committing serious crime.
All right, Commissioner, still a lot more to discuss. Stay with us. You're watching One on One.
Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against the vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function. Remove outdoor objects. Make sure that you went to the ATM. Stock up with water. Make sure you clean the guttering, Lord. What about canned food? Make sure you got some stock up in your room. Make sure you prop up the paling and tie down the roof. Let me start to prepare real soon. Let me begin preparations. It's hurricane season. Let me sit down and reason. Let me secure a nation. Know your shelters, Bajan. Help out one another against the vibration. Develop emergency community plans so that we could function.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ingrid Burrows, and I'm going to give you some tips on managing your hypertension. The first thing you should do is to decrease your salt intake. You should keep your salt intake to less than 1 gram a day. This is equivalent to about 1 teaspoon of salt every day. Another thing you should do is to ensure that you're getting enough physical activity. You should aim for 150 minutes of aerobic exercise every week of moderate intensity. For example, brisk walking, light jogging, swimming, or running. This equates to half an hour of exercise 5 days a week. You also want to increase your intake of fresh fruits and vegetables. It is advised that you eat 5 servings of fruit and vegetable every day. And the last thing you can do is monitor your blood pressure at home with a digital machine. This is very important as some patients have elevated blood pressures while in the doctor's office while having normal blood pressures at home. This is called white coat hypertension. Also, if you're taking medication for your hypertension and you notice any changes in your blood pressure, you can call your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications to suit. If your readings are too high or too low, you can inform your doctor and he or she can adjust your medications appropriately. I hope these tips have been helpful.
Welcome back. Commissioner, the motto of the police service is to serve, protect, and reassure. But members of the public are concerned by what appears to be excessive force in some instances by some of your law enforcement personnel. We're seeing videos on social media of encounters with officers and civilians. First of all, do you think that your officers are engaging or using excessive force when they interact with members of the public?
I would not say so, Lisa. If I must say is that we as a professional organization, our officers are well trained to interact with the public in a civilized manner. One of our core values is to respect human life. And that is how our officers would normally operate. You'll find that society is changing somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, a police officer could have gone into a district and the persons would be very engaging, cordial, respectful, those type of behaviors. But what we are noticing currently as persons are more inclined to challenge authority. The police themselves, with a main degree of pullback, if I must say, and also restraint in terms of how they really interact with members of the public. There's that small group of persons that anti-police, if you want to term it that, who would challenge the police officers when they're doing their duties. And you'll find that it's only a certain age group, most of the time, who are inclined to tell the police, well, leave this district or do not come here, things like that. So sometimes, and most of the time, the police backs are placed against the wall. And police will have to push, they have certain laws that give the police that power to interact with persons and protect themselves. So when that is happening, the police have no choice whatsoever than to defend themselves and bring some level or measure of calmness to situations. Yes, the videos are out there, but you must ask yourself at what point were these videos activated? Were they activated from the very beginning, or were they activated in the middle or at the end? Were these videos tampered with to show the bad side of the police? When the video should be running, if they want to have a true and a full picture from the outset, from the time the police arrive at the location, from the time the police exit that vehicle to engage the public. If the footage was showing those things, then we will have a better and a more balanced picture of what is occurring. So yes, circumstances will arise when the police would have to take firm and decisive actions to bring situations under control. And mind you, if police would allow those things to happen, people will be laughing at the police, saying, well, you come down here to do your work, and 2 or 3 persons chase you from home there. Anytime the police allow that to happen, I think that the society on the whole should have some concern that we are in a lawless situation which should not allow to happen.
No, you mentioned something there. You said that the video should be recording from the start. However, we've seen civilians trying to record and being told that they need to stop recording.
Because when the police are there doing a job, it's something called obstructing the police in executing his duties. When a police officer is on duty, nothing should be done or said to stop the police from carrying his duties in an unobstructed way. So that is why you have to intervene at those times.
But I'm at a distance from the officer. I'm in another building upstairs recording, and you're telling me to stop recording. I'm not obstructing you in any way, sir.
Well, a distance is a difference. I'm speaking to persons who are in close proximity to police officers, and that is where the concern is, because a situation might be a little tempered, but once persons are nearby, it can flare, and then police might have to turn to the left or to the right, only to be confronted with other persons who are in the way. So it's good that police officers maintain the distance between himself and the general public when they're executing their duties, and especially in some locations where there's not much elbow room. And you will find that and it's good too that the police intervene in that way, because if sometimes when you allow things to mushroom, you'll find that persons just come, 1 will be there or 2 will be there, then it becomes 4, 6, 10, and then the police are outnumbered. So when you do not make that firm early intervention and bring things under control, it might look that police are using the excessive force, but it is not like that. It's just that the police want to maintain control of the situation. And once he does that, then it will be better for not only the police officer, but for the members of the public, to reduce that level of antagonism between the members of the public and the police.
And given all that you said, are members of the public coming forward to assist police with information to help them solve crimes like in years gone by?
The aspect of giving police information, it has moved forward tremendously. And I say that because it is not only the word of mouth contact or communication with the police. There's Crime Stoppers, which has a local branch in Barbados. And that is out there for persons to give the type of information or tips which we would need to have crimes solved and investigated. And we find that we get a tremendous amount of tips from Crime Stoppers. It is used widely and regularly. So yes, we will not get the ordinary person that come into the police station and saying, well, A did this or A did that. But behind these things, Crime Stoppers have filled that void for us. That is, we may not be getting the average person, but there is the avenue. An avenue has been created for us through Crime Stoppers, and we use that to the best advantage. And I can tell you that we reap tremendous benefits by being exposed to the whole Crime Stoppers platform.
There are also complaints from members of the public that officers take too long to respond to calls from members of the public for assistance. If it is a murder, they tend to get there quickly. If it is a break-in, they take their time. How do you respond?
It might be so in some instances, but how I look at reports, yes, every report should be serviced. What I can say is that reports should also be serviced on a priority basis. That is, if a report comes in and it's a very serious report, there may be other reports in the queue, but I would not expect officers to push the serious report one side and say, well, I have to attend these other reports first in the queue. It doesn't work like that. So it has to be knowledge of the seriousness of the report, what exactly the person is saying, and we expect persons to prioritize the reports, but make sure that all reports are attended to when that serious report, priority report, has been completed.
Over the years, we have seen several officers going before the court to answer charges themselves. How big of an issue is discipline within the police service?
The police service in itself is a disciplined organization up front. There are rules, there are regulations, and police officers from the training inception, they are told to what to do, what not to do. And the rules and regulations are taught at roll call, at training sessions, wherever they go. So yes, you'll find some persons disobeying the rules and regulations and flouting the laws. Now, when that happens, we take firm action. As you know, that persons are placed before the court. And even though we will look at the image of the organization and say it has been tarnished. Sometimes we have to man up and face reality and say it is better or it is best to take firm action against an individual who has flouted the law and put them before the court. It not only sends a message to the other members in the force to keep on track, but it also tells the public that the police is serious, the police is taking action against their own. So that builds confidence in the police, it builds trust in the police also. It shows that the police, there's no favoritism for their own, the action is there being taken.
No, the police service has always suffered from a lack of manpower. We've always heard that you always need more officers to come into the service. What are you doing to attract more members?
Since my term in office, which was very short, I must say, we look at the whole aspect of technology. Technology in a sense, website, police website, Facebook, to reach persons. I must say that COVID-19 in itself has pushed aside or interrupted our ways of trying to our ways of interacting with members of the public, to have them come into the force. And that is something that we're working on, something that we want to have happening. Now, where we are concerned, we're looking at to build out a cadet kind of system, getting young people involved in policing, meeting them early, and whether it is secondary school, whether it's community college or university, selling the force, especially those technical side within the organization that persons would be inclined to come and have some knowledge in, one, and have a career in it. So it is putting out there that there's more to policing than meets the eye. That is the persons patrolling on foot or getting involved, as you mentioned, in certain districts and some level of harm there. But there are certain avenues, certain things within the force, whether it's cybercrime, whether it is major and financial investigations. Those things are things that we want persons to come on board with and look at economic crime. And those things, we have young persons there who are keen to be involved in economic, financial aspect of things. And those are avenues that we can have persons come and do that type of work for us.
And I ask resources because the crop over season is well underway. Do you have enough resources to take care of the everyday security needs of this country and then man the various crop over events?
Yes, we did analysis of the crop over events going forward. This year, we are well within our reach to police crop over, not only from a police aspect, but also from the involvement of the Barbados Defense Force, who would partner with us, come on board, put our heads together, and every event, I will assure you and the members of the public that each event will be covered. Now, it is not only crop over that we would deal with, it is those other reports within the communities, because when you have crop over, you find persons have these satellite events. So outside the hub of Kadooment, there are those events that persons hold in communities or some back of the way alley. And those are things that we have to be mindful of and make sure that whether it's our regular patrols or whether it's persons who give up of their time, come in and do extra duties, those areas are captured also and dealt with. Addition to that, outside of the actual main proper events, there are the party cruises and such like. So we get in contact, we hold meetings with boat owners, party ship owners, and make sure the security aspect of it is there. Whether it is a police officer, whether it is the private security, those things will be put in place to make sure every angle of Kaduma is well covered. So that is how we would go forward in terms of Kaduma crop over events, all of them.
Commissioner, we're seeing a lot of accidents on the roads. Can you provide statistics in terms of how serious these accidents are, the number of fatalities, etc.?
Sure, Lisa. The accidents this year, for some reason, we have a big increase in accidents this year. If I will look at 2022, fatal accidents, we had 6 compared to 5 last year, 2021. Serious accident were 27 in comparison to 19. Slight accidents this year, we are 828 in comparison to 586. 2,190 this year in comparison to 1,584. And the overall total this year is 3,051 in comparison to 2,194. So we see the big difference in the increase of accidents this year. And it is amazing that such a big increase could have occurred. So a big increase over a 39% increase in accidents this year. So we wondering, why is this? And we look at the causes of these accidents. We find that persons are inattentive.
Mm-hmm.
They're distracted when they're driving, and because of that, they're getting into accidents, serious accidents and fatal accidents also. There's also the aspect of excessive speeding. We found that is a problem this year, and amazing when we look at the age groups. There's 2 cohorts of age groups which we find causing the most accidents on the roads of Barbados. Those between the ages of 18 and 35, and those between 35 and 55. So those 2 age groups, we find that are regularly involved in accidents. We discussed it, we saw it, and we will have to do some work in the media. That is educating persons about these things, the best possible driving habits to adopt. And also, if they need remedial training, then we would advise them to see a driving instructor to have those things ironed out. But it's a major cause for concern, I must say. Even sometimes we found that persons are falling asleep behind the wheel, especially at night. And that is something we have to educate persons that if you feel sleepy, park somewhere, sunlighted area, a gas station, port or whatever, and get some rest before you're proceeding on the road. So yes, it is very noticeable and is a concern to us. For our resources, there's a big stretch on our resources. Anytime an accident happens, whether fatal or non-injury, because non-injury sometimes the road is blocked. So not only the police resources will be involved, also other members of the public will be impacted upon on the way to work, on the way to the business places, wherever it is. It'll be a big concern for us. It has an impact on productivity of the country, one. It has a big impact on the health sector. So it's a ripple effect when these accidents occur on the road. But we have a road policing plan to put in place, whereby our officers will be out, we map the roads where they're occurring, and we will take action, whether it is engaging persons, educating them, talking to them. Because especially when certain roads which are known for speeding, and persons come out of those roads which are known for speeding and bring that bad behavior into ordinary, regular roads. So it's not a pulling back, having left those stretches of roads that would encourage persons to exceed the speed limit. They're transferring that bad behavior into our highways and byways, something that we have to get out from their system so that our roads can be as safe and secure as possible.
You mentioned persons not paying attention, persons falling asleep, but alcohol is also a factor. However, you have nothing to measure that by at this point. Barbadians were told that the country would see the introduction of breathalyzer testing on April 1st. Several months later, however, we're still waiting to see that legislation in place. The Attorney General, the Honorable Dale Marshall, has indicated that it would be delayed until further notice. Can you provide an update?
What I will say, Lisa, to you and the general public, is that yes, we are well aware of the delay. I must also say that we are ready for it. One, we've had the training, we've interacted with members of the Ministry of Transport, and things are moving in the right direction. What I must say is that we understand the situation as it stands, currently stands. Now, we have to put everything in place. Now, it's a culture that was entrenched for years. So moving from a culture of just freely having a beer or whatever and moving around, that's the culture which is known to everybody. So when you introduce those types of laws, they should be gradually introduced, one, and everything that needs to make it right should be put in place to keep it right. What I'm saying is that if persons go out having a drink, whether it is a dance, a fete, a bashment, whatever it is, persons should have the opportunity that before they leave that location, do a self-test for alcohol. And there are implements, there are machines available that can do that for them. Those are such things such as those should be in place for persons ready to find out whether or not they are up to a certain level of alcohol, instead of getting them behind the wheel and going out there and getting themselves in problems. So for us, it is best to get all of the things in place. That is self-testing, that is having a taxi available, a driver to come and take you home. Those things should be in place first before you get that just out there and persons are placed before the court on a regular basis. Now, if you rush, what happened in other countries can happen in Barbados. When those things were rushed in other countries, you find that they had a skyrocketing cases of persons really under the influence. But a year after, it dropped close to zero because people who were enforcing it pulled back and said, man, that's foolishness. And they don't enforce the laws when it comes to breathalyzing. So that's why we have to, one, make sure everything is in place. Two, educate persons and get everything that can pull this thing a complete job in terms of bringing a breathalyzer into play is there that person can feel comfortable with and obey the rules and drive safely on the road. That is how I see it.
So no date?
No date currently.
Commissioner Boyce, you took up the mantle to head the police service effective November 1st last year. What is your vision for the men and women of the police service?
Well, my vision for the Barbados Police Service, that is one which was fashioned when I look back what went before me, what occurred before my time, and I also look forward down the road. So it is the good job which was done by previous commissioners and other members of the organization who would have worked tremendously well over the past 180 plus years. So looking in the future for what we can do to carry on the organization, I saw some critical points which I looked into to form the vision. And that is to provide the highest quality police service for members of the public, to have a force which is efficient and accountable by utilizing modern technology and also best practices. The vision is to promote safe communities, I must say, and also for the organization itself to create a healthy work environment for our members, because we want to build team building. We want to have team building. Which would foster mutual trust and respect for the members. So the vision is all encompassing for the members of the organization, the members of the public, society as a whole would benefit from the vision which I am putting out there.
Commissioner Boyce, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to sit and talk to us about crime and your vision for the Barbados Police Service. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa. It was my pleasure being here.
You're most welcome. That was the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Richard Boyce. I'm Lisa Lord. You are watching One on One. Do have yourself a wonderful evening.